Hey, what's up guys, it's Oakley, and over at E3, CA has been pretty busy showing off Total War 3 Kingdoms. So most of the demo has been showing off this one siege of Xiapi Castle, and one of the cool things is some people did snap some images from the press conference, or the press event, and here they did grab an image of us looking at a bit of the campaign map, and this is cool. We get to see a little bit of what the artwork looks like. It's pretty awesome, looking glorious. And then I'll be showing you an image here soon that shows you kind of what the campaign map looks like in like the first person mode. And then I do have to say it's going to be looking very, very cool. One of the things you'll be noticing from the artwork and the gameplay is that it's just all very vibrant. And so this is going to be made very clear here. I mean, you'd imagine, where are we? Is this Lustria? Is this Pandora? They've turned the palette just all the way up to the max, infused it with a lot of character, and this is what I really like. It's one of the things that I saw stated in the articles that were released previously, where they were all discussing how CA has taken kind of the fantasy elements of Warhammer, where the terrain features are accentuated, and they've brought that over into a historical setting, which I'm totally on board with. As long as there's no, skulls in the mountains and they just take existing features and blow them out of proportion, I'm all aboard for that. It really brings the different elements to life, and I'm pretty eager to see what happens with the different elements of China, how those are going to look at, when you go to the highlands or the rivers, or maybe areas like perhaps Tibet, what those are going to look like once accentuated. Some of the jungles in Vietnam, perhaps, all of those are going to be very, very interesting to see. So yeah, I'm all aboard for the nice visuals, and it even seems here in the battlefield as well, some of the distant mountains are, again, reminiscent of what you'd expect from Warhammer, with very much accentuated features. And then what you're going to be seeing in this battle is just them kind of talking over a little bit of siege gameplay. I'm going to be pausing the video here and there to discuss a couple little elements as they arrive. For the most part, they do kind of in the narration of this, CA talks about the heroes. Not too much to talk about when it comes to the heroes. Stuff I've discussed in previous videos, although they do in this kind of commentary talk about the friendship mechanic for the heroes, where if one of your heroes is friends with another hero and one of those heroes is dissatisfied with his faction and rebels and joins the other faction, he might bring his friend with him. Similarly, in the battlefield, if one of your heroes dies, then his friend may rampage at the site and charge at the enemy. So that's a little bit of mechanics. But back to the battle itself. So I did want to discuss a bit of the UI. So you can see that CA did do kind of a fresh take on most of the UI, cleaning it up. It does look very stylized. You can see the ink blots everywhere, and then a rearranging of the unit cards. We now have large vertical stacks for each of the generals that you can bring, with their accompanying retainers stacked twice over. The unit cards are kind of interesting. It seems like the take that they're going is the faded characters with highlights on their key weapons and defensive equipment. I think this is cool for differentiating between classes, but within a class, say for instance, cavalry with spears, distinguishing between light cavalry spears, heavy, and elite, it's going to be very, very hard to tell because everything else has been blurred out. So that is one of the drawbacks from the system, but I'm willing to give it a try. Another thing you'll notice is very, very large unit sizes, up to 160, and they could even be playing on large mode. Perhaps on ultra we'll be seeing even more. But yeah, definitely embracing the fact that in Romance of the Three Kingdoms in this time period, you were seeing a lot of big armies coming to the field. And yeah, obviously changing a little bit of the UI here. As you move these units forward, the place marker for what it looks like when they're on the ground has changed. They've added a couple different things in here. So for instance, this unit moving up does have the ability to have this little defensive screen, and then of course the fluttering banners are making a comeback. It looks like almost every unit in the game has these different character banners specific to, I guess, your retinue or perhaps even your faction. I'm really excited about that. It just brings so much character to the game, makes it so much more thematic, and hopefully it paves the way for their reintroduction in Warhammer 3. Next, they're going to fly over to the castle, definitely showing us some depth of the castle itself, dispelling fears that it would be a return to, the Warhammer way of doing things, where it's just attacking from one position. Nope, not the case. We're going to be able to attack in the traditional historical way from multiple directions. Then they show us Lu Bu there on red hair, looking great. Although I do have to say, some of the other characters that I've seen kind of images leaked of do have really ridiculous weapons that I think are a little bit too overboard. So I'm okay with some of the accentuation and fantasy elements, but as long as CA kind of tampers it down, I've been kind of taken aback by some of these. Anyways, you can see as these characters move forward, he's going to try and deploy his units up here. So take a look at that. They've changed up a little bit of the icons for how you drag your units and what it is looking like. Don't know if it changes anything in terms of deployment, if they've changed anything in the way of waypoints. They didn't address that at all. I'm not sure here if there's any limits on how wide you can draw out your units. For the most part, it looks like it's pretty reasonable. It's like 5 men deep at the shallowest, I think. So maybe they've gotten away from spaghetti lines. I hope it's something that they address in this kind of reworking of things. Next thing I can commentate on here is they say, well, here we do get to see a visual element of your lord charging forward. So as he moves up, you can click on him and you get just a quick spotlight on his main attributes. He's a level 3 character, and then you can see his abilities on the fly. And then, of course, they have the different stats listed here. So an interesting rehashing of the the unit stats here. So we're no longer seeing melee attack, melee defense, armor piercing, charge bonus, charge attack. We're not anti-large. We're not seeing any of that. It's all been kind of reduced down and obfuscated a bit more. So I have kind of some concerns about that. One, if you look at Warhammer 2, how many different stats they are, the way they interact, even if you really understand it, it's still somewhat nebulous. So I can understand CA trying to simplify it, but at the same time, it's a bit simplified too much to the point where it could be misleading, where if you no longer have the direct reporting of, this is an armor-piercing unit or a sundering type unit, it's going to be kind of lost in the mix, and I think this is going to be a little bit too oversimplified for my taste. So for instance, I click on these yellow dragons here. Their missile toughness is about medium, and look at the stats, 208.7k. I'm not quite sure exactly how that works. What do those numbers mean? Is this hinting at some sort of 208k? Is that hinting at like a unit health pool? I haven't been able to see enough comment to see how things are panning out. But are they going towards unit health? I know it's not shown explicitly on the unit here what health they're at. It still says, 160 men out of 160. But perhaps below that level, is there an underlying kind of unit health system similar to Warhammer? I'm kind of intrigued by that. But yeah, anyway, so that's going to be one of the things to the unit UI. They're going to be stripping away some of the details. Hopefully they allow us to peer under the hood by bringing back some of those charge bonuses in places. But we'll have to wait and see. And then actually look at these guys. These are the new Lothern Sea Guard. They're dual, they're like a hybrid unit that has missile and spears. So interesting to see hybrid units in the game. And then take a look at these guys. Essentially what's happening here is the person controlling this has actually another unit selected, and they're mousing over these Azure Dragons. And take a look what happens to the UI on the left. It actually shows you a breakdown of the different stats and does a comparison. So this is kind of a cool way to do it on the fly, just so you can see, relative melee toughness, missile toughness, melee power, right off the get-go. On-the-fly comparisons, instead of just +1, +2 that CA had shown previously, or used previously, now it's a bit more of like a meter, which is interesting, but I only really saw it appearing in battle when you highlighted over friendly units. It was a little bit weird to me that it wasn't appearing when you were targeting enemy units. So that was perhaps strange, but maybe they're trying to keep, us a little bit in the dark in that sense. Having every single match combat almost like the results revealed from the stat breakdown like that would be perhaps a little bit too much. Next thing we can see here, take a look at this fort wall. So some of the description of it, it says this defends settlements. When garrisoned, it can rain boiling oil on attackers and can be scaled by infantry. So this goes to show that CA is going to be continuing to try and tune the way they handle sieges. So siege equipment is still going to be here. You have your battering ram here. Siege towers have been seen, I think, in other images. But yeah, it seems like all walls are going to be scalable by infantry, which is kind of annoying because it kind of negates the benefit of the walls. It makes the scramble over the walls just too easy. You can't really focus on the breach. I know what CA is trying to get at, where they want the AI to be as competent as possible. They don't want it to get bottlenecked. They want it to be able to charge over any wall and, not have this stalemate outside the walls, which I can understand. But there has to be some risk reward. So for instance, here when we were panning over that wall, it did state that boiling water can be dropped on local forces, but keep an eye out on one of the units in the center of the UI at the bottom, the one at 158 health. It's currently scaling the walls, and it is going to be stuck at 158 health. But we'll come back to that. Another thing I did want to pause the video here for in an instant is Keep an eye out also when units clash into one another. What does it kind of look like? What is the charge impact? What are the dynamics of troops clashing into one another? And from what I can tell, units do seem to lose their cohesion and are relatively blobby. So that's again a little bit disappointing. I would have hoped they would have poured a little bit more effort into that. Perhaps this is light infantry charging into light infantry and they'd have, maybe loose order, but I haven't been super satisfied with the charge impacts. It looks a little bit goofy, at least for infantry. What I've seen from cavalry does look pretty good. But anyways, keep an eye on the troops scaling the walls. Theoretically, they're supposed to get boiling water poured on them, but they're just going to be scaling these walls and taking almost no damage, which to me, I think they should have done it in the Shogun way, where there's like almost a pretty high number of guaranteed kills on scaling the walls, just to dissuade you from pouring everyone up over the walls and maybe incentivizing you to go for the gates. Because as it stands right now, it seems like, might as well just throw everything at the walls, just mass attack against this wall, not much strategy and not much benefit to the walls. But we'll wait and see. How this mechanic plays out. But I do have to say, the animations look glorious on that. Definitely an improvement from the grappling hooks of yesteryear. And take a look at these guys as they scale up over the wall. They do this little dodge through the stonework, through the little gap. Much more believable than what we were seeing before. A little bit acrobatic and dainty as they do it. So yeah, a little polishing here and there, which I'm happy to see. What else can we commentate on? Yeah, I guess at this point in the battle, something is going to trigger where you do get reinforcements that come in. So it appears that you can get, reinforcements as always in battle. Not quite sure what the limits are going to be, but what you'll notice is as this commander comes in, there's now going to be 5 different commanders on the battlefield under your control. I had heard previously that it was limited to 3 per army, so it seems like you can have more per army. I don't know what the limit is total. Presumably, if you have 2 armies reinforcing, each was 3, you could have 3 and 3, you could have 6. But what if you have even more than that, which you have 9 if there's 3 armies? It could start to get pretty crazy. And then as we see these cavalry move forward, we get to see a wedge ability, or a wedge formation, I should say. So here they do talk about charge speed, melee charge bonus, range block chance. So these are all stats that I said were previously hidden under the hood of that UI, and it looks like they're still there, the stats that we're familiar with. So that's good to know. But yeah, they're going to be forming up into wedge, looking pretty cool, and then charging out after the AI. One of the things I do want to mention as well is take a look at what the AI is doing right now. They're fleeing from the player. So this goes to show that CA has been working a little bit on the siege AI. And what they did state in one of the articles is that the AI at a certain point, when it feels like it has kind of lost the fight for the outer walls, it will automatically retreat back into the inner walls and do a bit of a stage defense. So that's, to me, pretty cool. I like that idea that you're going to be able to fight multiple stages of the battle. The AI is told to retreat. I just hope that it doesn't result in little buggy situations where as they're retreating, they're not going to stand their ground. And if you get cavalry in the back, as you're seeing here, you can just run them over and they're going to be told by, their programming to continue routing and it'll be an easy kill. But that's something they'll hopefully address in balancing. Also, take a look at the top left of this image. Yep, you can see that little golden icon there. It looks like barricades are making their way back into the battle. I didn't really see them on the battlefield, but over there in the distance, it looks like they are present. Maybe that's a trap. I'm not quite sure. I do miss me some of those flaming balls and spike traps, etc. But yeah, take a look at these cavalry strikes into the enemy routing. Again, like I said, the AI being told to retreat here does seem to mess with the AI and it is opening them up to some pretty devastating blows. So yeah, I'm a little bit worried about that. But the cavalry charges are definitely satisfying, so that's a plus. Also, fires are going to be raging throughout the buildings across the battlefield. And if you look at the bottom left, you can see the building icon is at 4%. Presumably, that's city damage. And the more and more it ticks up, the more buildings have been damaged. And then it'll have like melee. It'll basically have debuffs for the defending army the more you burn down the city. So that's cool. I did like that mechanic for Attila. Glad to see it making a comeback. And yeah, there goes the AI retreating back into the city center. And then they're going to pivot on over back to the middle, or we're going to see a little bit more action. And you can see a couple heroes here dancing in the center. One of my main questions is, when you have this many heroes in close proximity, what prevents them from all instantly spamming the duel ability, locking themselves in melee combat, and just deciding the fight? I still have a lot of questions about this duel mechanic. It does seem cool, but if it allows you to Lord Snipe, that is my main concern. Yeah, take a look at the battle here. It looks like the strategist here is not going to be... I don't think they're targetable in duels, and you can see them. They're the ones with the fans under their icons there. So yeah, kind of interesting. But keep an eye out as well on the units. You'll be seeing men flying left and right every once in a while, and that is the heroes with their area of effect impact. So a little bit of holdover from the animations from Warhammer. Funny to see that in the historical title. But yeah, I also do want to comment on another thing here. You'll see some dialogue popping up from Zhang Yao and Cao Cao here. So they are addressing the fact that your characters are going to have different relationships in the campaign, and these will manifest themselves in the battle with little, quips to each other. There'll be some banter between allies. There'll be some insults between enemies, and it's going to be a bit of a dynamic thing. So okay, I'm not quite sure how happy I am about like them invading the UI quite like that. But, maybe if they're customizable enough, or if there's a wide enough, repertoire of funny insults, then it'll be okay. But if it's like generic stuff that pops up, like, yeah, that could be a bit disappointing. But overall, I'm pretty happy with how the UI looks. I love the settlement design. Very big, nice and open, lots of streets to control, lots of flanking positions. And then here, finally, we're going to get in at the final duel. Yeah. Xiahou Dun is going to be charging in. He's going to propose a duel, choose the character Lu Bu. And one of the things you did notice there is, interestingly enough, when he proposed a duel, he only had Lu Bu that was available to duel. So I'm not quite sure how that works. What allows you to duel what characters? It's something CA will need to address. Is it locked to them having taken a certain amount of damage? Like, can you not Lord Snipe someone if they're at full health? Or do you have to challenge someone who's the same level as you to prevent, Lord Sniping downwards? So maybe you'll only challenge your peers to make things balanced. That'll all be kind of interesting. And then once they're locked in the battle, it looks like you do still have the camera that is freeform. So I do like that. One of the things I was worried about is the fact that you'd be locked into cinematic camera. It looks like you can move around if you'd like to. And then here you do see some of the active abilities that you can do as the battle's underway. So take a look at this. Effects, splash damage, 10,000. So again, a complete reworking of kind of how the damage works. Looks like we're going to be looking at health pools for these heroes. Just because of how tanky they are, they're obviously going to be borrowing from the health pool model of Warhammer. And yeah, so that's kind of it from this the gameplay. Again, we've had to kind of just pause here and there to extract little bits of information, but I'm very excited for CA to give us a bit more of like an official release on information. But that's it thus far. I am pretty happy with the way it's going, and I can't wait for more information. So I hope you guys enjoyed. Stay tuned for more, and I will see you in the next one. Peace out.